Some war criminals were caught, others went into hiding, usually under a false name, and others fled. Of those that fled, some went to South America, others to the Middle East, and others to Italy. Of those that went to Italy, some were in transit whilst others remained. Some of them were assisted by their family, the Roman Catholic or other churches, and others by the family members of the most senior of all war criminals. Today's video looks at the case of the latter, a criminal who was assisted by none other than the daughter of Heinrich Himmler, Gudrun Burwitz. The assistance given to Anton Malloth by Gudrun Burwitz, née Gudrun Himmler, is the best known, and it was described by the Daily Mirror as her greatest post-war coup. However, it's only because of her involvement that this Nazi criminal found himself in the dock, although it was at the very end of his life. Anton Malloth was born on the 13th of February 1912 in Innsbruck. He grew up in Schenna near Merano in the South Tyrol. At the time of his birth, this was all part of Austro Hungary. However, due to the border changes that took place after World War I, the South Tyrol became part of Italy. Thus, Malloth became Italian, and following learning the trade of a butcher, he was conscripted into the Italian army, where he rose to become a non-commissioned officer. Following the annexation of Austria by Nazi Germany in March 1938, he opted to become a citizen of the Reich. He was naturalised as a Reich citizen in February 1940 in Innsbruck, where he was born. He trained to be a police officer, initially in Innsbruck, and then here in Pretzsch, where the police border school was located. The following year, this was to be the location where the Einsatzgruppen formed up and trained. He got married in 1941 and had a daughter. As a police sergeant in June 1940, Malloth was assigned to the Gestapo prison at Terezín small fortress in occupied Czechoslovakia. The small fortress was the Gestapo prison for Prague, set up in part of the Terezín ghetto. The complex was once a major Austrian fortress. The existing infrastructure did not need much additional work to turn it into a prison and a ghetto. The prison was administered by the Gestapo office in Prague. From 1940 to 1945, the Gestapo transferred around 27,000 men and 5,000 women to the small fortress in Terezín, initially mainly Czechs, but also later people from many other countries. Of these, around 2,500 perished as a result of maltreatment, torture, disease and neglect, whilst 250 inmates were murdered. Around 8,000 former inmates were murdered in other camps following transfer. The person in charge of the small fortress was Heinrich Himmler, who was captured in Czechoslovakia and executed after the war. I've done a short video on him, there's a link below. Malloth remained there until Terezín was captured by the Red Army on the 8th of May 1945. During this time he is said to have beaten around 100 prisoners to death. Malloth initially hid with family members in Würgl near Kufstein, Austria. In January 1948 he was taken into custody in Innsbruck. He denied any involvement in torture and murder. In September 1948, he was sentenced to death in absentia by a Czechoslovakian court in Litomarice, which called a large number of witnesses. An extradition request was made but turned down by the Austrian judiciary. He escaped from prison at the beginning of 1949 and fled to the South Tyrol in Italy. Malloth was able to regain his Italian citizenship in 1952, and after this was revoked in 1956, he regained his German citizenship the following year. He lived unmolested in Merano in South Tyrol until 1988. The German consulate in Milan extended his German passport several times, despite several extradition requests from the judicial authorities in both Germany and Austria. In 1988 he was deported from Italy to Germany, but the Dortmund Public Prosecutor's Office refused to extradite him to Austria or Czechoslovakia, or even to open an investigation into what he did during the Second World War. He was free. Gudrun Burwitz, the daughter of Heinrich Himmler, took it upon herself to look after him with funds initially raised by Stille Hilfe, the organization which looked after former Nazis. She found him accommodation in an exclusive retirement home built on a property that had once belonged to Rudolf Hess during the Nazi era. Thanks to investigative journalists in Germany, it became public knowledge that the German taxpayer had funded the luxury lifestyle of this criminal, and that had largely been arranged by the daughter of Heinrich Himmler, Gudrun Burwitz, using the resources of Stille Hilfe. Martin Finkelgruen was born on the 5th of May 1876 in Berlin. He was the owner of a department store in Bamberg. As a Jew, he fled to Prague following Hitler's takeover in Germany. Following the occupation of Prague in 1939, his children left, but he stayed. Possibly he might have felt that he was too old to leave, or he might have felt that as his partner was not Jewish, then he was safe. On the 30th of November 1942, he was arrested, taken to the small fortress, where Malloth beat him to death. In 1992, Martin Finkelgruen's grandson, Peter Finkelgruen, wrote a biographical book entitled The Story of an Unpunished Murder. In 1993, a play by Joshua Sobol called Der Schöne Toni premiered at the Düsseldorf Theatre. Der Schöne Toni, Handsome Tony, was the nickname given to Malloth by prisoners in Theresienstadt. The conditions of Malloth's retirement, together with the publicity surrounding his past, caused such an outcry in Germany that the Munich Public Prosecutor's Office intervened. Malloth was taken into custody on the 25th of May 2000, and on the 15th of December 2000, the Munich Public Prosecutor's Office brought charges of murder. I think the trial at the Munich Stadelheim remand prison was the first in which the federal German judiciary dealt with crimes committed by guards. It began on the 23rd of April 2001. Survivors from the Theresienstadt small fortress testified as witnesses in court and confirmed again that, among many other things, he had caused 2 naked prisoners to be sprayed with water in the winter until they were dead. On the 30th of May 2001, now aged 89, he was sentenced to life imprisonment by the Munich I Regional Court for murder and attempted murder. 10 days before his death, Malloth, who was seriously ill with cancer, was declared unfit for custody and released from prison. He died on the 31st of October 2002 in a nursing home. I hope you found this interesting. You might be interested in subscribing. I upload every Tuesday and every Friday at 2000 hours my time.